Hi there, I'm Walter Bernasiak, and this is Top 5. Here we count down the best and worst performances of our most beloved actors. Today, we take a look at the worst of J-Law. Yeah, that's right, Jennifer Lawrence. This Top 5 is the result of a Twitter poll I put up asking who should be the first actress covered on Top 5. If you want your voice heard, make sure you follow me on Twitter at awesome_Walter for more polls. The 26-year-old megastar has a great young career going for herself, with one Oscar win and several nominations. However, there have been a couple missteps on her road to success. So without further ado, here are J-Law's Top 5 worst performances. That's the last time I'll say J-Law. The girl's name is Jennifer Lawrence. Number 5, Alyssa Cassidy in House at the End of the Street. Lawrence starred in this horror movie the same year the first Hunger Games movie came out, and they pushed back the release of this film a couple months, so it was pretty commercially successful. It actually came in at number 1 on its opening weekend. However, the film is pretty generic for the genre, and Lawrence couldn't do much to save it with her performance. Sarah is a divorcee who moves to a small town with her daughter Alyssa to start anew. However, a house nearby has only one resident that the small town doesn't like. That resident is a young man named Ryan. Years earlier, Ryan's sister, Carrie Ann, murdered their parents and disappeared. When Alyssa starts a relationship with Ryan, what really happened to his family is revealed in shocking ways. Jennifer Lawrence isn't the only Jennifer in this movie.
And why didn't you call me? I would have come to get you.
Had to. Lawrence does her best with the material given to her. House at the End of the Street is a pretty bland, by-the-numbers horror film that doesn't do much to set it apart from the pack. A performance like this usually wouldn't be on this list, but with Lawrence's limited filmography, I had to choose something for the number 5 spot. Her character is an aspiring singer, but it's obviously not her voice in those scenes, and it's pretty noticeable now that we've heard her sing in one of the Hunger Games movies. Apparently, she did record her songs, but the filmmakers used another voice.
Wouldn't it be sweet if you could be in love with me?
This character pushes things along in her interactions with those around her, especially with her mom and Ryan. Those scenes don't come off very well and they stick out a bit.
My mom went to a psychiatrist for a long time after she broke up with my dad. I like the way you see things. I like the way you see me.
Like the movie, she's just kind of boring here. Things do pick up a bit at the end, but it's subpar for what we know she could do at this point. Number 4, Mystique / Raven Darkholme in X-Men Days of Future Past. Lawrence's Mystique has become an easy target for people pointing out that she doesn't care about these movies, and I will say there are a few moments here when her disinterest is visible. In the 1970s, Dr. Bolivar Trask creates the Sentinels, giant robots that can detect the mutant gene and destroy them.
You're a smart man.
In the 21st century, those Sentinels are now highly advanced murdering machines that have wiped out almost all of mutant kind. As the remaining X-Men fight for survival, Wolverine is sent back into the 1970s to change how the Sentinels are created and avoid this dark, disturbing, and catastrophic future. I liked Lawrence's Mystique in X-Men First Class. The character was more energetic and she seemed to put more into it. Between First Class and Days of Future Past, she became one of the biggest stars in the world and honestly doesn't need the X-Men movies anymore. Her current persona doesn't even match up with being in a superhero movie right now, or at that time, especially this role in this series. While I really like Days of Future Past, maybe my favorite X-Men movie, making her the center point of this whole plot seemed obviously only done because of who she is now. If there were no Hunger Games and she didn't become as huge as she is, I think her role in these movies would have been reduced. The emotional scenes with her pack no real punch. Just because an actor can cry on command doesn't mean it holds any weight when the performance behind it just isn't there. She was doing bigger things and was the main part of a hotter franchise, so if she was disinterested, especially with putting on all that blue makeup, it showed. Number 3, Mystique / Raven Darkholme in X-Men Apocalypse. Again, due to a lack of more roles, I thought it was okay to put 2 of her Mystique performances on this list. And she's a decent amount worse in this than she was in Days of Future Past. In 1983, the father of all mutants, Apocalypse, is woken from his slumber. He then recruits his 4 mutant horsemen and begins his attempt to tear down this weak new world he's discovered and build a better one. The only ones standing in his way are the newly reformed X-Men led by Professor Charles Xavier. After Days of Future Past, XMen Apocalypse left something to be desired. Lawrence is once again a big focus here, but now the movie around here doesn't have all that much going for it. Not that there isn't some good, strong stuff packed in there, but all in all, X-Men Apocalypse is just barely above average. Mystique is like a folk hero to mutants all over the world now after the ending of the last film. She's reluctant to accept this point of view others have of her and seems more apathetic than ever in Lawrence's 3rd go-around as the character. It was pretty much confirmed by Lawrence herself that this was her last X-Men movie. The combination of that makeup and ostensibly not being into the X-Men projects made for a predictable parting of the ways. What makes her worse here is just more of the same, but now it's a little more blatant that she just doesn't want to be there.
You got your warplane. Let's go to war.
You're X-Men.
I'm sure she's relieved to put this role behind her and move on to other projects that suit her needs as an actor a little bit better. Number 2, Serena Pemberton in Serena. Never heard of this movie? You're not alone. It never had a big theatrical release in the US despite having 2 of the biggest movie stars in the world as its leads. Why is that? Not sure, but I can tell you that this movie isn't very good and Lawrence is just about as bland as ever in it. Based on the 2008 Ron Rash novel, Serena follows the story of George Pemberton, an ambitious timber baron who works in Depression-era North Carolina. When George meets Serena Shaw, they quickly wed and run his business together. Serena soon miscarries, and this creates intense jealousy towards the mother of George's illegitimate young son that results in a dark turn for all involved. Lawrence is just flat throughout this film. Her line delivery is pretty drawl, and this character isn't the best fit for her.
Our love began the day we met. Nothing that happened before even exists. I have your child inside me.
As the movie goes along, Lawrence's performance picks up a little bit, but the movie is very slow to get to things that we all know are coming. By the time her big scenes come around, there isn't much she does that we haven't seen her do better in other movies. I do admit, it was good to see Varys from Game of Thrones in this though.
My father had 40,000 acres in Colorado.
Had? I do hope he didn't lose them in this awful crash. I'm a good actor, my lord.
This was a rare dramatic misfire by Lawrence. If you want to see it for yourself, it's on Netflix, so check it out on there. And the number 1 worst Jennifer Lawrence performance is Mariana in The Burning Plain. When people talk about Jennifer Lawrence looking bored in her films, I direct you to this 2009 film here. The film tells 2 interconnected stories. Sylvia is a successful restaurant owner who leads a private life of promiscuity and self-hatred. When a man shows up with a young girl who is supposedly Sylvia's daughter, things quickly change for her. Elsewhere, a girl named Mariana and a boy named Santiago begin a relationship when they find out that his father and her mother are having an affair. As the 2 stories progress, unexpected twists are brought to light. Lawrence isn't exactly the main focus in this movie, but she does have a pretty sizable role. Kim Basinger and Charlize Theron take up the top billing at that time.
Can I have this one?
Only if you give me a scar.
What?
I want to remember this day. I love it.
Her character is very reserved, but to the point where you're not sure if she's even invested in the slightest. Seeing Mariana investigate her mother's infidelity also manages to be dull. I'm not sure if it was the direction or just Lawrence herself not being engaged, but thus far, I think it's pretty clear that Mariana in The Burning Plain is her worst performance. This is just an odd film with very strange character motivations for all involved. It's not very well known, and I think it's something that Lawrence probably wants to keep in the past. She's a great actress, and her career just keeps growing as she continues to take on more complicated characters and challenging roles. I want to hear what you guys think. What is your least favorite Jennifer Lawrence role and/or performance? Who do you want me to cover next on the show? Leave a comment and let me know. If you haven't already, make sure to go back and check out my top 5 best Jennifer Lawrence performances. Follow me on Twitter at awesome_Walter to take part in more polls about who may be covered next on the show. And come back next week for a brand new top 5. I think you'll like the next subject. You've probably never had a friend like him.